basically, in other words, mean you're growing up on your own journey of meditation, so your journey of inner peace. If your meditation level is the same as 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that means for the past 3 years, you make zero progress, right? And if you make zero progress as an instructor, how can you teach others then? So that is actually not just when you come here and looking for the lectures or theoretical explanations, but how you can deepen your experience itself, because that's what matters. Not only that you concentrate on coming to get the skills to teach others, but skill to teach yourself. So, before I go any further, as you already know, the factors of the meditations composed of the 4 main categories, basically 5. But the first, but the most important is the 4: awareness, comfort, consistency and continuity, and observation. This you know very well. Which means that no matter how long it takes, it's actually still on these 4 factors that keep growing more in something called refined adjustment. Each days, years that pass by, what it takes is actually to be able to add more elements in the more refined scales, to add it up on your practice of meditations until you see the progress changing or you're going deeper. For example, let's say the scale like this. You notice that at first when we talk about meditation, it's about having to keep the balance between awareness and comfort. So one side of the scale will be awareness, the other side of the scale will be the comfort. Right? And it's actually, you keep adding it up on both sides of the scale. For example, you can start it to add by, at the beginning of the very first time you meditate, by slowly relax your body, slowly clear your mind. That's when you add the elements of comfort. And it's very coarse level. So basically you start by probably at 1 ton of comfort, which gonna make you feel really sleepy. And that's why, as a result, you add another 1 ton of awareness in order to keep it balanced. But now that you've been meditating for years, the level of your adjustment that you keep increasing is not a ton of awareness or a ton of awareness anymore, but it's actually reducing it down as years go by, because little difference make big difference. Since the mind itself is very refined element. So, for example, for now, you said you're adding ton, there'll be 1 kg of comfort, and trying to add it up another 1 kg of awareness. The deeper you go, it becomes 1 gram of comfort and 1 grams of awareness until 1 milligram, until 1 nanogram. Which means that the longer it takes, the more refined adjustment it will be. Like diamonds. When you polish the diamond, it's starting from looking like a rock with very coarse until you slowly down into a little part until you shape it perfectly. And that's how we going deeper in the state of meditation. So as years go by, that level of refinements is what we're looking for. The question is how. The only way you can do that is to spend more time of your own practice, spend more time looking inside yourself, facing the very same obstacle that blocked you from 1 year, 2 years before, and to slowly make that little adjustment until you overcome it. Again and again and again. Since it's very little adjustment, very refined adjustment, so it takes time to put it perfectly. And this is what you can be looking forward to do in this retreat as well. What will be your questions so far? What was your problem, the hindrances that you have so far? Have you ever spending the times to review your meditation right now and 2 years ago? Do you feel much different, or just stay sabai and that's it? Now everybody's quiet. You are reviewing it? Yes? Actually, that is more like the course is all about for you guys. Not for me to give. Of course, I have some other theoretical part for you to take a look in other sessions. But mainly, this is what I want you to have. Taking this retreat to go deeper on your meditations. When you are at home, you won't be able to do it much easily, since you don't have the time, you don't have the opportunities, and it's not easy to create an environment where you can disconnect and isolate yourself from all the things that will distract you, so you can't invest the time completely on your own practice. You can't give something that you don't have. So in order to give others or offer others the opportunity to reach very deep in their meditation, it means you have to go to that place first. Second part, the theoretical for this retreat for the seniors and juniors this time, I will emphasize a little bit more of something that's called originations relativities. Some of you may get questions that when I answer the questions about different problems, why would I answer in a certain way? The moment that you understand really the Eightfold Path very deeply and the originations of relativities, you can basically identify what is the problem, because everything linked like chain reaction. So when you are able to identify which change that creating to the next part, for example, what caused depressions, what hinder people from letting go, what got stuck people from become more self-esteem. So there's a link. It's like every one of us, we have certain kind of issues that we have been holding on to that before, and that growing to something else. So in order to provide the right tools is to identify the right link. And that is something that unblock or unlock a person, and they can grow on their own journey. So this is the theoretical part that I will add it up on this retreat. It will probably take some time. So I want you to taking some time to understand that, because it's how we create that mindset to be very chronological in that sequentials of originations. Since everything has an order, everything doesn't really happen by itself. It has a cause, therefore there's an effect. So in order to solve the problem, you have to go back to the cause, finding the root cause. And that is why I probably never used this Pali word to you before, but it's good to know. Yoniso manasikara. The first one, yoni, means origin. Mana means mind. Kara means task or job or duties. If you still remember the Eightfold Path, I explain all the time that Eightfold Path working like a cycle, and it's all begin with the right view, the right perspective. There are two components that create the right view. Number one is this one, Yoniso Manasikara, and number two is good advice or good friends. Now, Yoniso Manasikara is actually one character of the mind, one property of the mind when you perform the job looking into the origin of problems. So when we are able to identify the origin of the problems, that we are able to set the right intentions, create the right kind of practice to craft a new habit, put extra effort, become mindfulness and concentrations. So actually that's how it works. So it is the combination of the Yoniso Manasikara and good advice. This is what you actually are providing to a lot of people throughout this time you've been spending in making different retreats or workshops. But then, how do you create the Yoniso Manasikara of your own and encourage others to develop it? Because this is the origin of the right perspective. For example, I used to give the example of how my sister, when I told her to break up with her boyfriend and she never did, I gave the good advice. But she refused to look into the origin of the problem why she had to cry every night. Until one day she realized the problem is him. And she intended to break up with him, finally say the word, finally take the actions to cry alone for many nights until finally she get over it. So that Yoniso Manasikara is that part. Of course, it needs good advice to guide them a little bit, but you can't force anybody to do anything at all. No, you can't. And that's why meditation helps creating that. Because exactly what meditation means, of course, the process to keep the mind stand still, or the other word, keep the mind to stay still within so we can look inside. The cause of the problem from the originations, the relativity, is in the mind itself. So when a person started to look, explore inside or mind, they find the root cause of the problems, and then when it combined with good advice, that how a person coming to realization, to understand it, and from understanding it become mental actions, verbal action, and body actions. So that is going to be emphasized in this retreat. Because in the long run, this is kind of characters that when a person develops, they are able to face any problem they come across in their life, including ourselves, especially as a meditation instructor. Being able to teach yourself is hard. Being able to give guidance to yourself is not easy. That requires you to have certain kind of code. And where you get that from. No matter how many books you're going to be reading, it's just good advice. But the Yoniso Manasikara is your part. You can go out there and listen to many other teachers, books, but what is your own version of understanding? And that will go hand in hand with it will go hand in hand with this, will require adjustment of the mind. Because it means that the more that your mind evolves deeper in meditation, the more you understand the cause deeper, lies deeper inside yourself. When you're able to solve your problems, you're able to offer solutions to the others or advice to the others. So today, I'm going to keep it easy. We won't go down to all the theoretical part yet. I want this to be open organizations of questions that you have in mind over the past years, what have you been facing, what have been your issues, or what hinder you from your deeper experience of meditations. So that you can spend the next 2 weeks and unlock that. Yes, effort. But since the more we find the mind, when you add up all the balance, you make little difference. You make little factor, add on a little bit, but you make big difference. Since the mind comes refine, you go to deeper layers.
This might be more of a comment, because somehow as you spoke, I got to also discover the origin of where my issue has come from. And perhaps your sharing during the course of the session will also help me to go deeper in it as well. So when I come to retreats like this, I go deeper in my meditation experience, and I find that life becomes easier in the manner that I am more survived, and I am more able to handle issues in as a meditation trainer and in my life as well. But then when I go back to my normal life, then with distractions and everything, I tend to go down in my meditation experiences as well. And I become, sometimes I miss meditation once in a while, but then I also become, I meditate, but then the meditation experiences are very different, right? And then I realized that perhaps it's also because then the manner, the expectations that I have from the retreat, I carry it back at home, and then I don't create the right environment. But there could also be some share from you, some tips on how to nurture this kind of practice at home. Because when I come here, it's like really in a senior class. Yeah.
That's a good mindset though, actually. Well, I think it's come from a few factors. Number one, when you go back home, there are also activities that you have to do, assignments, jobs, things that you have to run, environment that is not very supportive. So that will be one of the main hindrances. The next part, since the environment itself is not facilitating you to go as deep as you are in the retreat itself. So when you try to push instead of keeping balance and make a little adjustment, you end up encouraging experience. As a result of that, it won't happen the way it should be. So to resolve this, actually go back to very, very first things, discipline of time. The very first ground rule is to create the disciplines. No matter how hard it is, discipline helps. And that's why go back to you are able to review your own creations or developments of the habits, universal values. Because that's how you can create the discipline. If you can become more refined in your daily actions, you can become more refined in your mental actions. That is something that you can incorporate in your daily life to see that have you changed in your daily habits? Are you still having the same things as 2 years ago? Because otherwise it won't be easy for you trying to go deeper in your meditations when you're at home in your environment.
So I noticed in my meditation practice that I have phases. So in one phase I'm very disciplined and I do it every day and more than 1 hour. And then I have phases where it's really hard. And even if I'm sitting down, it's like maybe I'm still for 5 minutes out the hour. So I don't know what is a way how to balance that out, not to have so much extremes. Because for me, no matter how much I do it anyway, I still have periods where it's so hard.
Mm-hmm.
So what to do with that?
It will go back to this one. It's not just the experience that you have vary in different days, but what did you do in different days that make a difference? What are things that you were facing? What are situations you were facing? What kind of conversation that you have? So if you keep track of that, you can also see how things around you influence different quality of your mind, which also help you to understand that if the conditions of myself today is like this, and this is how I overcome it. And that is also something you can learn how it works for yourself. And the same things you can give advice to the others. Now, I know that all of you is very proficient, very efficient in giving you advice. But the details of advice, that is hard. Then how can you give the advice that with very different state, not very generic? And that is something that if you can find a pattern of your own mind, based on things that you have faced each day, and how that it affect the condition of yourself in different times and different days, and you can, up until the level that you can overcome it, that is very helpful. So go back to observe a little bit more your days and what happened in your meditation. There must be a factor right there.
Already I have some ideas.
Yes.
Talking about the self-discipline, sometimes it's like when I fall busy, sick for example, and I want to meditate. I have most of the time my students at those moments they say I don't do it. And at the moment, as myself was can make me happy even when I am sick so that I can meditate. And I have asked this question to myself. At no point, it also then at a certain moment when I fall asleep, for example, I stop meditation because I know that I go back meditation, but this time it should not be good. And since I don't want to destroy my exercise, I don't meditate. I don't know if it's good or.
I mean, if you are not ready, at least if you understand that you're not ready, that's good. For me, it's good. If you understand yourself. So for example, if today you're really sleepy because you have a lot of things to do, you're very tired, you can't stay awake, just rest. With the intentions that, or setting the time to come back to your discipline, to continue from that. So that is helpful for me. Because that means you will take all those observations and see that this is not working for me in this condition. If I'm enduring it, will be just sleeping in sleeping in sitting position, and that's not helpful. So learn more of that. That's take observation. It's good.
When we go back from retreats, we are like more encouraged, more motivated to meditate. It goes by a week, maybe sometimes months, or maybe even more. But after some time, a phase comes where you are supposed to meditate and meditate almost every day, and then like it becomes something like daily practice, but the improvement or the something better that is supposed to come in your meditation experiences, it doesn't come. So you practice and it becomes like okay every day.
Exactly. Exactly the point I'm talking right now. The very first factor. you still meditating? Since it's already become something that you feel like it is something you have to as a daily habit, or one of the things like brushing my teeth, you don't ask yourself anymore, why do I do that? So when you started to losing that, you lose something that's called passion or motivation to do it, because you don't feel like reaching certain kind of goal. Goal setting is still important. It keeps you motivated. And that's why when you don't feel much willingness, it reduces your effort. No efforts, no mindfulness. No mindfulness, no concentration, which means you can't go deeper than that. So from time to time, don't forget to review what is your intentions. Why did you start your meditation? 2 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago for some of you, why did you do that? And as time goes by, has your intention changed into something else, but what is the goal right now? Or just to keep track of the experience so that you can submit it online. And that becomes more like compulsory, rather than you committing. That's different. That means you don't have the willingness to do it.
It's a related question. So when you realize, okay, something is not good and you want to change it, you cannot come back to the retreat again, right, at the same moment. So what are the things and practice or anything that we should do to reset the regular?
If I were you, I will find some moment off. Having a moment for myself. You can't help someone who is drowning if you can't swim. If you can't encourage yourself, motivate yourself to meditate, to find your inner peace, to go deeper in it, how can you motivate others? So that's why it is also important to keep the balance, remember? The first balance begins with yourself. How do you look after yourself? Physically, mentally, and some of you spiritually. That's the important. And many times we forget about that because everything, now it becomes like a job. My job is to meditate. But you forget about the goal of doing it. Of course, this happens. Even monks have it. After some years, we forget about it, become a routine. That's why we try to find our own time into reviewing it. We do something called resolution in order to remind ourselves what is the goal. At least it keeps us more motivated. And motivations help us to become putting more effort, and that, of course, brings result.
But does that goal also change from person to person? That's what I've experienced during the last year. So that looking back, when I first started meditating, I was very passionate and focused about it, and I really wanted to, and I loved going into it and going deeper into my practice. But then during the last year, my meditation practice came to a halt in some sense. Then my focus shifted and I realized I wanted to focus more on actually becoming a better person, and I feel I've grown a lot in that sense, and I feel I'm more kind and generous and honest. But my focus is no longer going deeper into meditation. So
Understand. Now, when you started to meditate more, you will come to something called, reach to something called inner knowledge on your inside. Your insight will give you the understanding, better understanding of your life and the world. And because of that, that makes you become more kind, generous, want to do something nice for the other, because you understand yourself better. That understanding of yourself becomes empathy. Empathy becomes compassion. That's how it transforms. And that's why you have the sense of wanting to do something for the others. But then, when you're losing balance on keeping it up, finally that understanding becomes weaker. You forget the element that caused it from the very beginning. That's why you focus on shift. Of course, it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But if you want the fire to continue burning, you have to keep adding wood in it. But now, because fire is easier to see, and it's burning very passionately, so you, at one point you forget about the wood, because the wood takes effort. Balance is the key. If you want to keep that fire, passion of compassion to be nice, to be kind, to be generous, to be helpful, you have to keep putting it, your passion into going deeper to your understanding of your life and world, to go deeper in different layers. So that comes hand in hand. Of course, that's why I was putting these sessions and trying to see everybody speak about the same thing. I suspect that this is happening to everybody, that after 6 months after the last retreat, everything goes on halt. Same to all. It seems. Yeah.
Maybe it's like on hold in exactly this way. That, so like taking it for me is a lot about taking it in every moment. So going back to the state of mind, which is the same, which is the one we practice when we sit down, but really bringing it to every moment. And the effect, I think, is actually bigger. So I have been noticing how my view, I don't know if actually my practice itself, like when I sit down, you know that I see something different, let's say, and I don't mind actually, because I'm seeing the result in how my way of, the view I have of things is different.
Exactly. Your view about yourself and the world will be different. The more that you discover about it, that is, the more that you understand how simple life can be, how important things are. That is I come to the realization which enable us to be able to let go, to detach ourselves so much of the ideas of things rather than the reality of it. But of course, it's also coming other hindrances too. You tend to get caught up in something else instead. And that would also means continue on your journey.
So, sorry, one more thing that I have been sometimes feeling a little bit uncomfortable is in, like, right now when I meditate, I don't use the techniques I teach. So many times I ask myself, should I keep teaching? You know, because I'm not using. I can go back to them if I need, and sometimes I do, but is it honest? You know?
What do you mean by you're not using the techniques, like a very beginning techniques, or
I'm
you
not using visualization and mantra, basically.
just go straight to the centers?
Yes.
Exactly, that's supposed to happen. You don't really need to go back. Remember, that is why this. When you're using the very coarse technique like that, it's like you're still adding the tons of comfort, the tons of awareness. And that is exactly the point right now that I'm trying to explain, that is right now you need to add 1 milligrams of comfort, 1 milligram of awareness. It's not going to be the same technique. And it means that you can't teach this, what you're doing right now, to your student. Because they're not going to be able to see the differences, but you do. So you don't need to go back, but you need to go deep.
But it's okay to keep teaching something you're actually doing.
If you are able to go deeper, then you are able to evaluate your students, how deep they are. So you can give the more precise kind of advice, how they can evolve. Some of them still need a ton of comfort. Some of them need kilograms of comfort. So, as long as you understand, that is it.
time was we are supposed to let go of expectations.
Mhm.
So things are becoming simpler, and also like we learn very basic things that we are focusing on the breath. And then what we do this need to have improvement and how we balance without having expectations in mind, having the one in mind.
That is actually goal and expectation is something that I always explain is not the same thing. Expectation is the pressure you force yourself to be in certain places, but goal is like a bench, is the idea of reaching certain kind of goal. The finish line you can see that is take commitments, times, and endeavor to reach that. So that is more like the goal. Now, it's good that your life becomes simpler and supposed to happen in that directions. Because that's when you started to understand the world better, understand yourself better, so you don't really feel attached to not the idea. But what else? Remember one thing though, if you started to, it doesn't mean that the understanding you have right now can be undone. We facing new things every day, new experience, new situation every day. Just because you understand something today doesn't mean it can't reshape to be complicated again. Well, that's why at least one of the goals is to maintain it. You're getting older each year, each day. Each day that you become older, you going from young adult to be full adult. Your role is also changing in your families, in your setting. So those things is actually what's changing. We don't stay the same. So that's why even growing up in meditation shouldn't be the same. We should keep growing it as well. So at least maintaining it because it's helped you to understand different aspects. What even we understand as simpler right now and 2 years ago will not be the same. Now I'm 42. I'm not like 34 years old anymore. So starting to think differently. And that is a reminder. As time is changing, our mindset is changing too. So that could be a goal as well. To evolve in understanding as our self is changing. For example, when I was a kid, I found my peace life is simple. I don't feel like going to this kind of market of competitions. It's a good thing. But when I reach 40, even though I don't want the same like that, but it means that I have more responsibilities for myself. The time I used to spend looking after myself become more because I have to become worried about what I eat, how I sleep. That's also changing too. It comes from understanding yourself better. So that is need to be grown as time goes by. Don't forget that you are changing, though. You're not the same.
Okay. About the word, Yomi saw monastic.
Mm-hmm.
I can make a link with origin and mind, but Yomi makes a little bit of
Yeah, maybe the task would be the better word. That's why it is the word is job, task, assignments, actions. It can be many words. Purpose? Because I translate and the translation is not easy. How to do.
Is it like a peace out?
Actually, it's more like deeper piecing.
Because
Deeper piecing.
it's
The opposite directions. The deeper peace.
Because I was seeing it as the more knowledge you have, like the more you know about meditation, you have the duty also to show others.
Exactly.
Like, somehow.
And this comes as what I said to Daniel. As you are able to understand the world and yourself better, you are able to understand others better, and that's when you grow. Do you want others people to understand what you understand, how simple life can be, how happy it can be very easily, so that's the way it grows. But it starts from yourself.
My question is regarding equanimity. When I started meditating, I remember that even before I came to the first retreat here, I reached like a high level of equanimity in which, in a level that I didn't react to certain things that I used to react very easily. But with the time, I have noticed that this level of equanimity is not easy to maintain. Maybe I can get it here in the retreat and some time after the retreat, but even with a consistent meditation outside, it's not easy to maintain, and I feel something that I am again reacting to things that I used to react before. So I don't know what you have to say about that.
You know what? We have a thing called 10 perfections. Equanimity is the last one, it's the hardest to achieve. And people would like to confuse equanimity to being neutral. But it's not. It's actually how that you are able to withstand everything without getting emotionally involved or affected by what's going on. So that's why not only just when something bad is happening, you don't react. When something is super good, but you don't swing ups and down. You take it as it is, while you're feeling full and content. Actually, the other way to explain equanimity is a state of being content all the time. And your ups and downs doesn't feel much differences to yourself. So the fact that your equanimity is reducing, you probably need to ask yourself about the level of your contentment. Has it changed? Before and now. Because when you're content, doesn't matter what's add up or losing, don't matter.
But why the level of contentment was like higher when I started meditating than now that I have been meditating for some time?
Well, that would go back to doing this. And that's what I was trying to use this session and spending time talking to you about how that you explore why that is happening to you. Why the level of contentment is reducing as you're meditating more or longer. Are you supposed to have more contentment but less? Exactly, more, and where is it becoming less? It means that your attention may shift to something else, your focus may shift to something else. There might be something distracting to be away until you want to have something else rather than feeling content.
But do you think it is somehow related with the level of refinement? Maybe one becomes more sensitive to like
that could be true. Because refinements that we are talking about, the contemplation in the mind have many levels of refinement as well. Doesn't mean that you're able to overcome some of them right now. You won't confront something deeper and more refined. For example, virus is smaller than bacteria. Even you can sanitize from the bacteria, virus still there. that would also need different techniques and methods to go on to that extent. It's true. Yes.
Yeah, it kind of made me curious, and I started thinking like somehow, like before your level of awareness is not as big as when you meditate for so many years. So before maybe the appliance of ignorance is bliss, right? Like a lot of contentment because awareness was not so much. But then the mind becomes very, very aware. And then you may get to a point that you become so aware of how the world works and everything. And of course, there's stuff you don't like, and you become so sensitive about it. But then you have to balance that out again to just kind of be equanimous about that. So maybe that process will be like, because your awareness will be becoming so big, and you will start seeing a mirror of the judgments you have outside of that, and then balance it again to be equanimous.
Exactly. That is what's going on. Because at time we think that, oh, we reached this and it's done. But then you're facing the dilemma that you have to continue working on it in different texts. It is a layers of yourself.
I think like that, it always goes away.
Is go as your understanding of this changing. Doesn't mean that you become free from it though. It's still a lot more that you perceived. The mind is complicated. But that's why we need to take more time into keeping the balance, keeping the consistency. As a result of that, how can you grow on your journey of meditations, your journey of inner peace, also help you to keep adjusting yourself with the level of understandings that you have with the world and the life.
What happened to me mainly in the last 2 or 3 months was I was too much work. I was doing too many things, and I really, it was clear for me that I was balanced, that my life was balanced, but I couldn't make a balance. I couldn't say no because it was commitment, because it was a responsibility. So I made it to be ambassador for it. But how to find the balance? I mean, you just can't make it balance. You need to do it and do it.
Discipline will be the first thing. This is the same as you discipline yourself to brush your teeth before bedtime. You just have to discipline yourself to keep your time of that balance. Remember one thing though, there's always something to do. There's always something to do, unless you choose to let it go and spending the time for yourself. You always find something to do. Human cannot stay still. That's rule of thumb. The very fact that a lot of people complaining they have so busy life, they want to have free time doing nothing, but can you see people doing nothing? They go on vacation, they're gonna do something, they grab a book, go party. They will do something anyway. Because in general, it's not easy to be still. And once you engage into it, it's very hard to let go. So that is why the letting go in the extent is letting go of the feeling that you have to do something all the time and spend the time for yourself. And that's probably one of the hardest thing to let go, because the letting go of yourself is the hardest. Remember very clearly, there's always something to do. If you want to do something, you always have something to do all the time. You feel you're scared immediately. It's your choice. Don't let everything become. Don't let all the jobs, the duties, everything become the priority, and you can't make a choice for yourself. You are the one who is responsible for the choice of yourself. Not those things. Be very clear.
You know, step to it is to go deeper in shorter time. I mean, 5 to 10
Cheating. Well, yes and no. Yes, because to go deeper is if you're able to find a refined adjustment faster, then little add up. You can add more and more and more until you go deeper in a very short time. But if you still struggle to find a refinement adjustment, then it will take longer. So that was the case. And that's why it becomes something called skill. Skill to add little. Skill to add that refined adjustment. And he becomes skillful at it. Then that you can go deeper in a short time. And skills coming from repetitive practice.
I had something similar like Sandra. So 2018, I decided to like have a word, and it was balance because I wanted to focus and have balance in my life. And then somehow I wanted to balance with the things I had to do and the things I like to do. So I was like doing a lot of things, and like the things I have to do, and gave me a lot of stress, which somehow it's a type of energy. And then I was doing the things that made me happy, and in a way overusing this energy, but actually it was another energy more added, right? Because you add up something more to do. It's not doing it to do. But somehow I realized that in this movement we also need to find balance somehow, because there won't be a state of complete.
You can't live your life in the forest yet. Or you can isolate yourself from the society. As long as you are there, there will be something demands your presence, demanding your attention, demanding your actions. Like you said, things you have to do, things you want to do. So that would take a lot of trying to balance everything on your own at the same time. That is why I would like to put in something called the word benchmark. What is the benchmark of your inner peace state that you can use as a checkpoint after you're going back from this retreat? That does it become worse than this? Does it get better than the benchmark that you have? Because it helps you to identify easier the moment that your balance is changing. That means that, oh, I need to work on that because I'm losing that benchmark. So benchmark, at least something you will use and take it back from this retreat as well to monitor. And in the next whole year, are these things that are happening in your life affecting it? Reduce its quality, or you have more time to increasing it? So you know where you are right now. Are you growing up, or you're shrinking? With different setting, with the environment that you were saying that you have things that you have to, things that you want to do, the benchmark will help you to sort of regulate it. So that's the idea. Normally, each of the peace architect, you're gonna go back and start jumping to the big ocean and try to do a lot of things. But now, there's another task of yourself, that benchmark. How did you still keeping it?
If I get you correctly, the benchmark is
what you attain from the retreat. Yes.
Like setting a standard, right?
Yes. So you have the comparing point. Let's say that after retreat you get this line. So now, when you go back to your country, to your place, and you started to have things to do, that it's going this way, or does it going this way? And can you put it back here? Or if it grows, how further? Because otherwise it's going to be go back, tell yourself to meditate, what? According to the requirements of his architect. Without reasons, without checking points. Because if you don't have the benchmark, how can you know that you're growing? And don't forget that you are a meditation instructor. If you remember the pre-taking take the first time I said to you that when you meditate on your own, you prepare 100%. If you're meditating for the others, you have to prepare 200%. It takes more, not less. So it's not just you going there to teach and that's it. No, it's also how that you grow deeper in your meditation so that you can be better instructor in that refined level. Because at one point, sorry to say that, what if your student is better than you but you still don't know it? Or you can't help them grow further. So, that would help you to go back to take a little observations. The big word, observations. It's actually the most important factor, but we mostly take it for granted a lot. That in these new environments, when you change your jobs, what does the jobs demand is how to disturb your balance, how you create the kind of environment or situation that will make it harder or easier for you to cope with. So if you take the observations and you will start to readjust yourself. Adjusting yourself to new environment and new setting will take some time, but it is needed. So observing a little bit on your daily routines with the new jobs that has to change a lot. Just by you spending more time traveling to your work, make difference. People around you, the conversation they have, give different energies, different too.
The nature of my mind is a very wandering mind. Sometimes it's tricky to get my mind to get still, and sometimes I need to be creative to get into this process. So what of these elements do I need to focus on in order to get to the point that I can be standstill easier and with less effort?
It will be the factor of consistency. If you keep consistent in your practice, at least, for example, 1 minute do the 10 homework, 1 minute every 1 hour, or whenever you are able to remind yourself to pause, reset, and restart, then you can solidify the ground. Bring your mind back to the ground.
I can add something. So I don't, because I found out this year that when I break down my practice, the shorter time, more frequent, it would be easier for me. So
Actually, it's true.
More.
It's true that it's easier if you break it shorter in more frequency. That's why I always say that sometimes frequency is even more important than durations. However, the journey to go deep, it takes durations. Frequencies help regulate your mind. Because it's keeping from distracting. So the frequency keeps you, for example, like the water example that they give all the time. The frequency is when you stop stirring more often, and you are able to let everything settle, the in-center or the bottom more often. So as a result of that, you are able to feel that clarity most of the time. But it takes duration for everything to settle better, to really get purified. So it works different ways. You need both.
And when I have duration, for example, and I get frustrated because I'm like, oh my God, it's still 1 hour or 1 half. So it's actually, I'm frustrated and I'm not enjoying.
That is expectation, rather than setting the goal. You end up trying to reach some things. That's the expectation of the time. Oh, I have an hour. Don't forget that though, each time that you meditate, go back to the very same thing. The rules is to keep balance, to keep consistency, how you stay content the whole time. Awareness and comfort are like equations. Awareness plus comfort equal contentment. So when you are meditating, this is also one thing you can monitor if your level of contentment is growing or decreasing. The very fact that you are frustrated because this one is gone. If you can feel feeling content, and you're adding up on this part and this part little by little, your level of content will grow. And it's supposed to be in the equations, right? But if it's decreasing, that means either one of them is going down. And that would mean adjustment, reset, restart.
And how about contentment in life in general? What's the equation for that?
That is the tough one. The only things that make us feel content in life is when you understand yourself better. When we are not content because we feel that we want this, we don't want this, we want to be this person, we want to reach there, we don't want to have this person in my life, it's a big word called desire that drives you away from the contentment. And desire, there are two sources, internal sources and external sources. Some desire coming from the external sources, from people around you telling you, you should want this, you should get that. And then we get influenced by everything that is told, normally. Some of it is still your own drive. Could be your past habit, your past characters, even you have better new understanding, but there are some moments that you go back to the old idea that maybe if I and that's when the contentment in life is gone. The only thing that takes your mind away from contentment is desire, remember that. I'm not saying though to have zero desire at all, because that's not supposed to be happening too. But don't let desire become the drive of your life. Because that's sometimes when people lose contentment because they stay on the desire all the time until they don't know what it's like to be content, to be sufficient. The level of desire and self-reflections will need to be together.
And when you are experiencing contentment, how would you describe that, like, or define what is contentment for you?
Contentment is when you are full. You feel so complete. Content doesn't mean that you are like a calm sea, but you feel like a glass full, like really full of content. Even something is good, you're appreciating it. Something is bad, you don't really feel upset. You feel so content in that state. Either ups and downs, you're still in that place. And that's what content is all about. Doesn't mean that you don't find good things coming in your life and don't appreciate. That's really what that aspect of the thing. When you feel content, you actually feel like you can grow all the time. A lot of time people think contentment is when you stay so flat. It's not. But it's when you feel so complete. But that room of completions can grow bigger. So instead of glass full, people think that you cannot fill more water. No. You can grow the glass. Because the space in your mind becomes bigger. That's how it's increasing.
I don't really know what I'm going to ask, but according to what I have observed in like some moments of my life, one of the biggest obstacles has been like emotional processes, especially breakups. Breakup, yeah. And especially before my period comes, that's a really like deep, intense emotional phase. Many also women go through that.
Yeah.
So even though I know that's it, even though I am aware that it shall pass and emotions, will pass by, like it's I cannot avoid, like going down. Like my clarity of mind, it totally disappears, and my meditation experience turns into an emotional purification or release. Maybe it's just that. And so I don't know what's the question. Maybe you have something to ask. Yeah, maybe how not to go so down, because it's like going down, up, down, up, down. And even though I am aware and I have observed that, then what else? What else can I do?
Can you do not to get there? Well, number one, at least you should be happy for the fact that you can see the differences. Because that is something when you give advice to people, they can't see that. So when people are being prey to their own emotions, they keep dragging themselves down to the place that they don't want to visit, and then you can't get out. Just the fact that you realize that it's actually happening to you, so that changing is good enough for the start. Now, the second thing is that normally there's always a trigger for that. As long as your mind is still attached to it, it's hold on to this. It's going to keep dragging you. Just like if your hand's holding on to something. If it's moved, it moves you. Your mind is likewise. So emotions in that state coming from you still attached to certain kind of things. Either it's just the idea in your mind, or issues that you think, if I had done that, it would have been like this, jumping fast and forward. So those kind of attachment that we created drag us into that emotional mode. When that happens, the only thing that can help probably is to remind yourself to be back in the present. Up to the point where you can look more like the goal setting part, that what would you wanted to do with something else or want to achieve, instead of letting this thing keep taking you to that emotional state. It helps, not easy, but it helps. To be honest, even I'm a mom for 13 years, there's still things that happened 15 years ago that, why did I think of that? And getting to the very same thing, but of course, as time goes by, just getting out of it easier and faster. I shouldn't be thinking of that, I cannot do anything about it. So now, what should I do? What is the priority, what is the importance, the significant part of my life? You notice that when that emotional state coming to you is always reflection of the past. If I do this differently, it would have been something else. You just kind of running in the loop of something in the past. That is something that, like, refine wandering thoughts. refined level of doing thoughts. Even though you grow all of it already, it doesn't mean it doesn't come back. And that's why I was trying to spend this session explaining that things that you believe already overcome can come back when you are being careless. Especially our body is also changing too, remember? Wait until you turn 45. When you're getting older, you will notice that your emotional change easy. Because your hormone, human body is composed of body and mind. The hardware and the software. Right now, as you're meditating, you are developing, you're upgrading your software. But as time goes by, your hardware becomes older. It doesn't regulate very well, which also affects it when you're losing it. As a result, of course, you will need to work on it too. It will take more time to lose that problem. For example, you know there's actually another monk in the residence that I am sleeping in. He had problems sleeping. He meditating a lot, he doesn't have stress at all. It's not because of stress, it's because of the hormone. He just doesn't fall asleep. And he's like 60, like 65 something. That comes. It's a natural thing, something happens to the body. And it will affect you eventually. But at least if you work on your software, you are able to cope with it easier. And he said to me, when they heard you guys snoring, it was really... But he didn't have stress, he wasn't busy at all, he just doesn't fall asleep. He's super one time, so usually he turns the lights off at 9:30 every night. The body just doesn't shut down when the hormones change. So be aware of that. It will happen. I guarantee. And that is something that will take you to understand the changing that happens to your body, the changing that happens in your life, and how to cope with it. At least if you have certain kind of ground that you know, or the benchmark that you know where you can come back to, it's easier for you to know where you are. But don't let the past come back.
For me, I think that the more I meditate, and especially this past year, the more I meditate, the more I increase my awareness. And this means I'm aware of my good thoughts going in my mind, and also feelings. And somehow it creates some sort of nervousness because it becomes too much too long. So I wanted to know how to address this.
It's supposed to happen. If I used to remember when I talk about anger, that the anger is the management of the anger is coming from when you are able to increase the delay time from detecting your anger into actions. Up until detecting when anger started to arise, up until detecting what comes into contact and trigger the angers, it's actually a process. So for that, it's how do you learn to shift attention from that awareness of it. Aware but doesn't have to mean you have to continue with it. It comes by products of the practice that you become more aware of the thoughts, aware of the feelings, aware of probably everything around you. You take others people feeling too. It comes as a sensor, but you can also choose to ignore it. Because it actually comes with the ability to shift attention easier. Right? So that is what it takes. But normally, because when you started to have, you become more aware and you tend to get focused with it and it continues, it's going to something else. So that is about shifting to something else.
Go back to the about emotions. You
I'm not, I never said that emotion is a bad thing, don't get me wrong, but it does alter everything you perceive. Aware of that, okay? It changed the way you look at things, like when you're wearing a glass with color lens, it changed the way you look at the world. So that's what how emotion works. Some of them is pretty good, though. It gives you drive, gives you passion to do something better. For example, if your emotions feel it, kind of want somebody to be happy. But make sure that you always have something called reality check. Because that's what emotion transforms you from seeing reality as it is. For example, when somebody becoming some kind, like Marco said, equanimity. When you're trying to do something nice for someone, and you let emotions take control of that, it's a good thing. Love is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. But when you love, let love transform from compassion into passion. You get attached to the soul of love. That not only just I want to do something for someone and I love, but I start to expect something in return. And that's the downside of it. When it's supposed to be just your part of giving and use the equanimity to stay at that place. That's why it comes together. So make sure that you don't let the downside of it come from seeing the reality check.
With that topic, in my experience, I believe that very much, like what you list is what this is. So I feel like meditation has allowed me to always be able to separate myself in that moment. So I will have this stuff and maybe it would be so intense, but at the same time I'm certain I'm like to be. And I give it space. I just give it space. I allow it. And somehow observing it gives me like this knowledge about my own humanity. And then I go to this process where I can integrate my humanity with my spiritual understanding of this thing. And when I integrate it, it just transforms and it has no power. Like, I mean, it's been a process in different phases, but like I think it's possible to grow from it and expand like this awareness and grow.
That's why I said that you do something called reality check, because you can choose to be in both places. But there are times when we jump into it and we keep going with the flow, and certain point we let it drag on too long. Although meditation helps you to come back, and you can either stay where you are, observing it, or let it sort of guiding your decisions about that. But don't let it take too long. It helps you to be separate, that's true. And when you get separated from that, you get a choice. It's normal for human to have emotions. It is very normal. And that's why I never say it's a bad thing. And it's probably, it will take a long time until you really be so content without being emotions. It takes a long time. So, if there's no further questions, the little homework for you today would be you to do one reflection for the past year. Where you were in your meditation, in your life, in your goal, and now. So at least you can make a comparison to how you grow at the end of this retreat and for the next year. As the body aged, as the body is aging, yes, where you were last year, and where you are right now, and where you want to be want you to see where the development should be. I'm not saying you have to, like making kind of rapid move or something, but at least you see that yourself grow in your understanding of life, in your journey of inner peace, in your meditation experiences. So those things at least helping you to take a look at reflections. Number one, the level of your contentment will grow, which also means that your level of happiness will grow. Sometimes it's just probably going to different types of vision and images that you see that come with all the qualities of happiness. Okay, so little homework. See you tomorrow.